My ex-husband decided to take my 2-year-old twins, claiming I'm unstable. I was just exhausted, and for that, he wants to take my children away? It's unbearable. You know, there are days when you wake up and realize your entire life is some kind of cruel, poorly written script. That day for me arrived exactly a week ago when I received the subpoena. Not just a letter, but an official document from the court. You probably think divorce is bad enough, but believe me, that's just the prologue. I, Emily, 31, am sitting in my small apartment, reeking of baby powder and despair, trying to comprehend that my ex-husband, Daniel, is dead serious about taking my children away from me. We were together for 8 years. 8 years, Daniel, and you know what I went through. When we first met, I was working 2 jobs to pay for my studies, and you were just starting your business. I believed in you. I supported you when you were broke for months, promising we'd make it soon. I cooked, cleaned, saved every penny so you could invest every spare dime into your venture. Then, after a couple of years, the business took off. Not just off, but way off. You became the Daniel who wore expensive watches, dined at restaurants I only read about, and gave me diamonds for my birthday that I was afraid to wear. Our relationship changed. Not overnight, but gradually. You started spending more time at work, then at business meetings, and then, simply, you weren't around. I got pregnant when we were 28. It was happy news. We both wanted kids, but when the ultrasound showed twins, a boy and a girl, I saw your face go pale. Not from joy. From fear. Or, more likely, from the realization of how much time, not money, this would cost. The pregnancy was hell. Constant nausea, back pain, I could barely move. You? You worked. Worked a lot, as you said. I was in labor for almost a day. 4 pounds each. Tiny, defenseless. A son, whom we named Noah, and a daughter, Lily. It was the most incredible moment of my life. And you? You came to the hospital, took a photo of us for your social media, said you were proud of me, and left for a very important deal. The next 2 years were my personal survival marathon. You worked, and I lived in this house, barely leaving. Diaper changes, feeding every 3 hours, double the crying when they were teething, double the cold, double the exhaustion. I forgot what more than 4 hours of sleep felt like. I looked terrible, wore stretched-out t-shirts, my hair was constantly in a messy bun. I wasn't Emily, I was just Mom. You saw it but refused to notice. You saw the perpetual bruise under my eyes, but instead of asking how I was, you'd say, "You need to rest more, Emily. You look drained." Rest. Me? When? When you came home at 11 at night and left at 6 in the morning? When I asked you to help, just to sit with them for half an hour so I could take a shower, you'd say you had important calls or urgent documents. Our conversations dwindled to "Did you buy milk?" and "Did you put Noah to sleep?" Romance died somewhere between the bottles and the laundry. Our intimacy? You constantly found excuses: tired, headache, early start. I felt like a maid and a nanny, not a wife. I remember our last big fight. It was about 6 months ago. I woke up to Lily screaming. She had a fever. I rushed for the medicine, and you were sleeping like a log. I came back, gave her the syrup, sat by her until she calmed down. Meanwhile, Noah started screaming because he had a nightmare. I was running between the cribs, trying to soothe 2 wailing babies, and you didn't even stir. I was at my breaking point. I just sat on the floor and cried from helplessness and exhaustion. Your watch beeped, you grumbled discontentedly, and asked what was happening. I told you everything right then. Everything that had built up over those 2 years. That I was alone, that I felt abandoned. That your important work had become more important than us. You didn't yell back. You looked at me with a cold, distant expression and said the words that killed me: "You're just not coping, Emily. You're always so hysterical. Maybe you should pull yourself together?" Your mother somehow managed 3. It felt like a punch to the gut. I wasn't hysterical. I was simply pushed to the edge. A month later, you said you were filing for divorce. Said you deserved more, that you needed a woman who would take care of herself, not just the kids. I was shocked, but I didn't fight to stay. I had no strength left. I thought it would be difficult, but fair. Division of assets, a normal custody agreement. I naturally assumed the children would stay with me. I am their mother. I am their world, and they are mine. Then the subpoena arrived. And his legal petition. I opened it, and everything inside me turned cold. It stated that Daniel was demanding full custody of Noah and Lily. The reason? He claims I am unstable and cannot provide for their future. Unstable. You know what he meant? That moment when I sat on the floor and cried. My tears, my exhaustion, my emotional burnout, caused by his absolute indifference, that's his argument. I cannot provide for their future, but he, the successful businessman, can. He means he has a house, and I have the rental apartment I managed to get after the divorce. He means he has millions, and I have a salary from a small firm, where I started as soon as I found a nanny. And the worst part is his family. Your mother, Daniel, who never once helped me, is now calling me and saying, "Emily, be reasonable. The children are better off with their father. He has the house, the money, the stability. You don't want them to live in poverty, do you?" My own mother, at his urging, also started pressuring me. Think about them, Emily. This isn't about you. It's about the children. Fight or let go? Let go of my children? I can't. I just can't. But I see his eyes, his lawyer, his wealth. And I realize he is serious, and he believes he is right. I have to do something. And I have only 1 month until the first hearing. My ex-husband's lawyer found my therapist's notes. I don't know how, but now my stress-induced breakdown is his biggest weapon. This isn't a custody battle, it's a war against my sanity. That first week after receiving the court papers was a blur of panic and caffeine. I literally didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel's smirking face, the cold, calculating look he gets when he knows he's winning a deal. This wasn't a deal, though. These are my kids. Noah and Lily. 2 years old, still smelling like sweet baby lotion and needing me for everything. They are starting to talk, calling me mama with that lisp they both have. The thought of not hearing that every morning? It physically hurts. It's like a constant, dull ache right behind my ribs that reminds me I'm fighting for my life. I immediately called a lawyer, of course. A family friend recommended a woman named Sandra. She was sharp, mid-50s, with eyes that looked like she'd seen every nasty divorce trick in the book. I sat in her sterile office, the air conditioner humming, and laid out the entire miserable saga. The marriage, the twins, the exhaustion, Daniel's indifference, and finally, his ruthless petition claiming I was unstable. Sandra listened without interrupting, just tapping a silver pen against her notepad. When I finished, she looked at me and said, "Emily, this is going to be messy. Daniel has unlimited resources, and he's clearly willing to use them to paint you as unfit. We need concrete evidence that he's an absent father and that you are the primary caregiver." Easier said than done. Daniel is a master of appearances. He has photos on Instagram of him cuddling the kids, photos taken specifically on the rare weekend afternoons he decided to grace us with his presence for an hour. He keeps a pristine nursery in his gigantic new house, which he bought a month after filing for divorce, purely for show. When the court-appointed social worker visits, he'll have the house sparkling and a nanny, a new one, of course, on standby to make him look like a hands-on dad. My biggest problem, the one I didn't even realize was a problem until Sandra brought it up, was my brief stint with therapy. Remember that absolute breakdown I had a few months ago, sitting on the floor, crying, feeling like I was drowning? That's when I finally admitted to myself I needed help. I went to see a therapist for about 6 sessions. I was diagnosed with severe stress and postpartum depression, managed by exhaustion. I took a mild anti-anxiety medication for a month, then stopped because I started feeling better once I got out of that toxic marriage environment. Sandra asked for the records. And that's when everything went from messy to terrifying. Emily, Sandra called me 2 days later, her voice tight. Daniel's lawyer already has copies of your therapy notes. I felt the blood drain from my face. How? That's confidential. How is that possible? We don't know yet. We filed a motion for protection, but they somehow got a leak. They're using entries that detail your severe emotional distress, your feelings of hopelessness, and your occasional thoughts of inadequacy as a parent as their primary ammunition. They're painting your stress-induced breakdown as a sign of permanent mental instability. It felt like a punch, harder than Daniel's cruel words ever were. He didn't just want the kids, he wanted to destroy me. He was weaponizing my weakness, the one time I was vulnerable enough to seek help because he abandoned me. I started to scrutinize my entire life over the last 2 years, desperately looking for anything to fight back with. I remembered those nights. The endless, lonely nights. I started going through old texts and photos. Daniel's messages were almost uniformly about his work schedule or asking me to handle something, never about the kids, never about me. One text from about 9 months ago, specifically, caught my eye. It was from a Saturday night. I was struggling to calm Lily, who had a raging ear infection. I texted Daniel, who was supposedly at a late business dinner in the city. Lily is screaming, high fever. I need you. Can you please come home? His reply, almost an hour later, can't. Big client. Take her to urgent care if it's bad. Call a cab. We'll transfer money in the morning. The cold indifference in those few words was a lifeline. He suggested I take a sick toddler on my own to an urgent care in the middle of the night, alone, rather than interrupt his big client, who, knowing Daniel, was probably a date. The emotional toll is constant. Every interaction with Daniel during the required pickups and drop-offs is strained. He arrives in his immaculate, expensive SUV, looking perfectly rested, while I'm a mess. He kisses the kids quickly, gives me a patronizing look, and tells me, try to get some rest, Emily. You look tired. He's doing it on purpose. He's deliberately trying to get a reaction out of me, to make me unstable in front of the children and the courts. His parents, Mary and Richard, are the worst. They call me, not to ask about the twins, but to advise me. Daniel just wants what's best for them, dear. They need structure. They need a good environment, Mary cooed yesterday. You know Daniel will make sure they have the best schools, the best future. It's hard, but you have to think about them. They're dangling his money over my head like bait. They make me feel like a selfish, poor woman who is only keeping the children out of spite. I look at Noah and Lily playing with their blocks, their tiny hands stacking them carefully, and I realize this isn't just about custody. This is about power. This is Daniel wanting to prove he can buy anything, even his children, even their mother's silence. He thinks I'm just a hurdle he can steamroll. I may be exhausted, but I'm not broken. Yet. I need to find something, anything, that will stop him. I have a gut feeling that his perfect businessman facade is hiding something, and I need to find it before those therapy notes destroy me in court. The second week of this legal nightmare was when Daniel stopped pretending to be civilized. Sandra had filed a motion to seal my therapy records, arguing that their disclosure was illegal and irrelevant to my ability to parent, but the damage was already done. Daniel's lawyer, a cold-eyed woman named Brenda, had used the contents to brief the guardian ad litem, GAL, the court-appointed investigator, who was scheduled to meet with me next week. I knew I had to be perfect, calm, and utterly controlled, but the pressure was crushing me. Then Daniel pulled the stunt with the insurance. Lily, my little girl, has a mild, chronic respiratory issue, nothing life-threatening, but it requires regular, expensive medication and specialist visits, especially in the damp fall weather we've been having. Before the divorce was finalized, we were all still on Daniel's very generous corporate health plan. I called the pharmacy on Tuesday to refill Lily's inhaler, and they told me the claim was denied. Policy cancelled. I felt a wave of nausea. I called the insurance company immediately. They confirmed it. Daniel had called their HR department the previous Friday and had Noah and Lily removed from the policy. Not just me, I expected that, but the children too. I called Daniel, and my voice was shaking, not with hysteria, but with pure, cold rage. I didn't yell. I kept it low and deadly quiet. Daniel, you cancelled the kids' insurance. What the hell did you do? He sounded annoyed, as if I'd interrupted a golf game. Oh, Emily. An oversight, I suppose. Just a clerical issue while moving things around. You know, setting up my own new policy. An oversight? Lily needs her medication now. You know this. This is deliberate, Daniel. You're trying to financially strangle me. Don't be dramatic. I told you I would pay for their needs. Just buy the medication out of pocket and send me the receipt. Honestly, Emily, always so chaotic. I can't believe you let this happen. I let this happen? He cancelled the coverage and was blaming me for not having immediate cash to cover hundreds of dollars for Lily's medicine. He knows I'm scraping by on my small salary, paying for the new nanny and the rent. This wasn't an oversight. This was a move. A vicious, calculated move to force me to plead with him for money, or worse, to see my anxiety spike before the GAL visit. He wanted to demonstrate to the court that I was incapable of ensuring their basic health needs. I immediately forwarded the denial notice and the call record to Sandra. She was livid. This is good, Emily. This shows malice and a complete disregard for the children's welfare, she said. We can file an emergency motion for the court to order him to reinstate the coverage, but it will take a few days. For now, pay the pharmacy bill on your credit card. We'll use this. The financial pressure ratcheted up instantly. I maxed out my secondary credit card to cover the pharmacy bill and get groceries. I felt sick looking at the numbers. Daniel knows I can't sustain this. He knows I'm already drained. The tension only got worse at the handoff that evening. I brought the twins to Daniel's new mansion, the one he claims is their future. It's huge and impersonal. When I handed Noah to him, I looked him straight in the eye. You are putting our daughter's health at risk. Do you understand that? He laughed, a short, humorless sound. You're the one making a drama out of a paperwork error, Emily. Look at you. You're shaking. Is this what the GAL needs to see? I'm providing a stable environment. You are the chaos. He then bent down, kissed Noah and Lily dramatically, and spoke loud enough for the nanny, who was standing nearby, to hear. Daddy loves you, sweethearts. Don't worry, Daddy will keep you safe. I drove away shaking, not from fear, but from the realization that he was an absolute monster capable of anything. He was using the kids as a shield and a weapon simultaneously. The hardest part, though, was the pressure from his family. Mary, his mother, showed up unannounced at my apartment the next day. She came in wearing an expensive silk scarf, carrying a small, beautifully wrapped toy for Lily. Emily, we need to talk. This legal thing is getting out of hand, she said, her voice deceptively soft. Richard and I love you, dear, but Daniel is right. You are struggling. You look thin. Why put yourself and the children through this? Daniel has guaranteed them a trust fund, the best schools, everything. If you just agree to give Daniel primary custody, say, 80-20 visitation, he will give you a generous monthly allowance. Enough to get a nicer place, to get back on your feet. Think of it as a clean break, for the children's sake. It was a cold, hard bribe, dressed up as a loving intervention. She was dangling money and stability in front of a mother she knew was exhausted and nearly bankrupt. I looked at her, this woman who only sees money and status, and the rage inside me finally found a channel. Mary, I said, my voice barely a whisper, you never offered to help me when I was alone with 2 babies for 2 years. Now you're offering money to take them away? This isn't about stability. This is about Daniel's ego and your need for grandbabies and a fancy house. Tell Daniel he can keep his trust fund. He can keep his money. I will fight him until the last dollar, because I am their mother, and a mother does not sell her children for an allowance. Her face went slack with shock. She wasn't used to resistance. She left quickly, but the message was clear: they were going to escalate this. They were going to use every piece of their financial power to break me. I have to find a weakness in Daniel's perfect, expensive armor, and I have less than 2 weeks before the GAL report is finalized. I need a real, hard piece of evidence that shows the world who Daniel really is. The third week was a descent into a kind of frantic desperation. Sandra had successfully filed the motion regarding the insurance, forcing Daniel to reinstate the twins' coverage immediately, which was a small win, but it did nothing to undo the damage of the cancelled policy or the damage from the leaked therapy notes. The GAL visit was looming. I spent days cleaning, organizing, and rehearsing my answers with Sandra until I sounded like a robot, calm, measured, focused only on the children's routine. I knew one wrong word, one spike of emotion, and Daniel's lawyer would pounce. I had to find something on Daniel. Something real, beyond his indifference and his terrible text messages. I was running out of time. The GAL was scheduled for Friday, and the court hearing was now just 10 days away. I started going through old boxes in the garage, looking for anything related to our marriage, any old financial statements, anything that would show his priorities. I found the old laptop I used back when we were first married. It was slow and dusty, but it still booted up. I was looking for photos of him being an absent father, but what I found was something entirely different. Hidden deep in the My Documents folder, under a cryptic name, was a folder called Project Phoenix. I remembered him spending weeks glued to this laptop late at night a few years ago, saying he was working on his big breakout deal. He was always paranoid about security back then. Most of the files were encrypted, inaccessible. But one small file, a PDF attachment, wasn't. It was dated from about 3 years ago, just before I got pregnant. The title was innocuous, Investment Strategy Update. I clicked it open, and my hand started to shake, worse than when Daniel called me hysterical. It wasn't an investment update. It was a formal letter, printed on stationery from a firm in the Cayman Islands, addressed to a bank in Switzerland. It detailed a complex series of transactions involving the transfer of a substantial amount of money, millions, from Daniel's main business accounts into a private offshore holding company. The stated purpose was tax mitigation and capital restructuring. I don't know much about finance, but I know what a massive offshore transfer looks like, especially when the main company's financial statements, which I was familiar with from our early days, never showed this kind of restructuring. This wasn't just tax mitigation. This was shady. This was hiding assets. If the IRS or the court got hold of this, Daniel wouldn't just lose the custody battle, he'd lose his business, his freedom, everything. My mind raced. This was it. The bomb. The ultimate, definitive weapon. This explained the unlimited funds he was spending on this custody battle. He had a deep, dark secret, a vulnerability far greater than my brief visit to a therapist. I immediately forwarded the file to Sandra with a cryptic email, found an old photo album. Look at the last photo. Sandra called me back 20 minutes later, and she sounded nothing like the composed lawyer I knew. She was breathing heavily. Emily, what is this? This is huge. If this is legitimate, Daniel is facing serious legal jeopardy. We're talking fraud, potentially money laundering, or at the very least, extreme tax evasion. This makes your custody case look like a parking ticket. Can we use it? I whispered. Use it? Yes. It shows he is not the upstanding, stable businessman he claims to be. It shows moral turpitude, a willingness to break serious laws, and a monumental risk to the children's financial security. The court would have to reconsider everything. You would win. Full custody, significant child support, probably his house. The silence on the line stretched out. I looked at the cribs in the next room, at the tiny, peaceful faces of Noah and Lily. And then the moral dilemma hit me like a physical blow. If I use this, Daniel goes down hard. He would lose everything. The business he spent 10 years building, even if he built it on a foundation of lies. He would likely face criminal charges. My children would grow up knowing their father, the man who occasionally shows up in a nice car, is a convicted felon. Their stable, wealthy father would be gone, replaced by a ruin. Is that what I want for them? To secure their future by destroying their father's life completely? Daniel is a terrible husband, a narcissistic jerk, and a distant father, but he is their father. Do I secure my custody by effectively making my kids fatherless? Sandra, sensing my hesitation, pushed gently. Emily, this is your choice. You have the leverage. We can use this to force him into a settlement, full custody for you, significant support, and a non-disclosure agreement on the file. Or, we use it in court and end him. The weight of this power was unbearable. It wasn't just about winning a legal battle anymore. It was about choosing the lesser of two evils for my children's future, a compromised father who is always trying to steal them, or a ruined father who is behind bars. I have to decide before the GAL interview on Friday. I have to look the court investigator in the eye and know exactly what path I'm taking. The clean, professional facade I was planning to maintain for the GAL now feels like a hollow joke. I have a ticking time bomb on my hands, and the explosion is going to irrevocably change all of our lives. That Friday, the morning of the Guardian ad litem's GAL interview, I had the Project Phoenix file saved on a flash drive tucked deep into my purse. It felt heavy, like a loaded gun. I had spent 2 sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, playing out every possible scenario. If I used it, Daniel would lose everything, and the children would be financially secure with me, but their father would be erased, a criminal. If I didn't, I risked losing them to him and his manipulative wealth. Sandra met me for coffee half an hour before the GAL arrived. She looked anxious. Have you decided, Emily? If you want the kill shot, I need to know now. I need to brief the GAL on this evidence before she writes her report. I looked out the window at the gray, indifferent sky. I thought about Noah's small hand clutching my finger, and Lily's infectious giggle when I chased her around the kitchen. I thought about Daniel's smug face, his arrogance, his cruelty. He deserved to be ruined. He truly did. But then I imagined the 10 years from now, my kids asking about their dad, and my answer being, he's in prison because I put him there. I pulled the flash drive out and placed it on the table. Then I slid it back toward me. No, Sandra. We aren't using this. Sandra stared at me, her sharp eyes widening. Are you serious? Emily, this is your guarantee. This is the smoking gun. Why on earth? Because I won't use my children's father as a casualty to win my war, I cut her off. My voice was steady, calm. The exhaustion was still there, but the emotional chaos was gone, replaced by a cold clarity. He already took the moral high ground from me with the therapy notes. I won't take their father from them, even if he's a horrible man. They don't deserve that kind of nuclear fallout. We fight this clean. We fight with the truth we have. Sandra sighed, disappointed, but respected my decision. All right, Emily. Then we go with the evidence of his absence and his malice regarding the insurance. It's thin against his wealth, but it's all we have. The GAL interview was grueling. I was polite, precise, and emotionally neutral. I documented every time Daniel was late for pickup, every text showing his indifference, and I used the insurance stunt to demonstrate his reckless disregard for their health. The hardest part was avoiding talking about the Phoenix file, holding that secret knowledge like a burning coal in my hand. The climax came 3 days later, at the settlement negotiation before the judge. Daniel was there with Brenda, looking bored, confident that his money had already bought the outcome. Brenda laid out their terms: full custody for Daniel, supervised visitation for me, and a small financial settlement in exchange for me signing an NDA about the therapy records. Daniel leaned across the table and whispered to me, "Just sign it, Emily. You lose. It's over. You can have a life now, without the strain." That's when I finally hit back, not with the bomb, but with a surgical strike of truth. "Sandra, show them the photographs of the children's room at Daniel's house." I had quietly spent a few hours on Daniel's Instagram, printing out every staged photo he posted. Sandra laid them out, photos of the pristine nursery, the designer cribs, the expensive toys, untouched. "Your Honor," Sandra addressed the mediator. "Mr. Daniel is presenting a perfect environment for the children, but as we see in these social media posts from the last 3 weeks, he is showcasing a meticulously staged, completely unused room. The children's belongings, their comfort blankets, their favorite books, their clothes, are all here, at Emily's apartment, where they live and where they are primarily cared for. The father is a facade, a weekend visitor, and he's attempting to use his vast, legally questionable wealth to buy his children." Brenda immediately countered with the therapy notes, yelling about my instability and emotional outbursts. Daniel smirked. I looked at Daniel, and I made my final move, not through my lawyer, but directly at him, across the table, my voice low but carrying. "Daniel, you claim I'm unstable because I cried out of exhaustion from raising our children alone. You canceled Lily's insurance, risking her health, just to save $1 and prove I'm chaotic. But let me tell you something, I am not broken. I am the only stability these children know. I know everything about you, Daniel. I know where you keep your secrets, and I know how easily your perfect world can fall apart. I choose not to expose you, not because I'm afraid, but because I choose my children's long-term peace over my own immediate victory. I am giving you a choice now: agree to 50-50 joint physical and legal custody, or I will ensure that the court sees you for the fraudulent coward you are." His face went white. The color drained completely. He knew exactly what I was talking about. He glanced at the judge, then back at me. He looked terrified, realizing that the exhausted, hysterical woman he abandoned held the keys to his jail cell. Brenda and Sandra huddled. They argued for 45 minutes. Daniel kept staring at me, a mix of hate and raw fear in his eyes. Finally, Sandra came back, a tired victory in her face. "He agrees. Joint physical and legal custody. We share everything. The court is ordering Daniel to pay child support and maintain all insurance coverage." I won. But it wasn't a victory that felt like throwing confetti. It felt like burying a part of myself. I didn't destroy Daniel, but I forced him to share the burden. I walked out of that courtroom, the flash drive still heavy in my purse, knowing I could have ended him, but I chose to preserve my children's father, however flawed he is. I bought their peace at the cost of my own ability to truly escape him. The conflict isn't over, it's just redefined. Now, I co-parent with a monster who knows I hold his life in my hands. The custody battle taught me that sometimes, the greatest strength isn't winning the fight you want, but choosing the fight you need to win. And for Noah and Lily, that fight was for their stability, even if it meant living under the constant, heavy shadow of their father's unpunished secrets.